I started this channel 8 years ago with a review of the Logitech G302, which has a grip width of about 5.5 and length of 11.5 centimeters. That's what we called a small mouse, and it weighs about 86 grams, which was very good at the time. Now the new medium finer mouse, which is 12.1 by 5.67 centimeters, weighs 76 grams. That's 10 grams less than a small G302 mouse. That's impressive, especially because to get to 76 grams, you need 2 of the medium ultralight X, because they're actually 38 grams each. It's good to put these into perspective, because as I said in a tweet, imagine if these mice were released 8 years ago. Our minds would have been blown. I think we get a bit used to mice being so good these days, so it's good to keep things in perspective. I love that the competitive mouse scene has come this far. But even if we ignore all that and judge by today's standards, these mice are top tier and ridiculously light. At the time I'm putting these on the website, they'll have the lowest expected weight ratio, which isn't an exact measurement, but it is a pretty cool indication of what mice should be. They line up pretty well. So multiply the grip width and length, and let's say we expect the weight to be about that. It should be about 68.6 grams for a mouse this size, but my copy of the Starlight is 46 grams, giving it a ratio of 0.67 to 1, which means it's way lighter than you'd expect for a mouse this size. It would have still been number 1 on the top mice list if it wasn't discontinued. This new version, however, has an even crazier ratio of 0.56 to 1, so it weighs almost half of what we'd expect. And if you watched my previous Finer Mouse videos, you might remember I asked if it was possible to be too light. So I got to testing this mouse in game, and within a few days, it actually did feel normal. And now even a Starlight Medium feels a bit heavy by comparison. You wouldn't think 8 grams makes that big a difference, but it really does in terms of feel. Like you can switch between these mice, and it's really obvious which is which. In terms of gameplay though, I was throwing this thing around on the pad, and felt very comfortable aiming it. So I think it does help having lower weight. You can watch the Starlight video for the scientific explanation of that, but even with these extremely light mice, I'm still of the opinion that there's no such thing as too light. The lighter, the better. How big a difference that actually makes to aim? Well, if you're trying to go pro or just be your absolute best, you want every advantage you can get, so these mice are good for that. I was testing these mice out against each other for hours, even just in warm-ups. And for tracking, I think the accuracy stats were only about 2% different. 2% is pretty good for tracking, in terms of overall play, but that might have just been in my head too. Like these weights during gameplay are so similar, it's really hard to distinguish. I definitely felt freer though, had some good runs. But I think we're reaching the point of diminishing returns. 46 grams was already amazing for this sized mouse. 38 is even better, but I think the weight percentage drop is bigger than the accuracy benefits. Like just because this mouse weighs a lot less than the MZ1, doesn't mean I'm going to switch to it, because size and shape is more important at this point. I didn't switch to the Starlight Small either. This isn't because of bias. When it comes down to it, I'm competitive. I just want to win, and I love all these mice. But I always use what I think is going to help me win. The small Ultralight X is probably going to be half the weight of the MZ1, so I'll do a separate video for that once I get one, and I'll let you know which I'll be using going forward. And yes, there is a chance I'll switch. We'll see what I play best with. I haven't switched so far, because shape is really important. Shape is king, as we say. But you have to give these things a fair chance to find what's right for you. Key term there, what's right for you. So even though the MZ1 is right for me, I mean I designed it, so of course, doesn't mean the MZ1 is going to be right for you. In fact, a lot of people chose the Ultralight 2 instead, and the reason appears to be the hump position. So pay attention, this seems to be a key factor in choosing a mouse. Now, some people are holding the MZ1 back here like this. The intended grip is here though, further forward. Your fingertips should be next to the mouse wheel, but I also prefer having this back area just in front of my knuckles, and on the back of the mouse a little bit. That's why I had the high back. But the people gripping here seem to base their grip on the hump position because they prefer it underneath this first joint. So they tend to go for mice with the hump either in the middle or closer to the front. And that's why they prefer the Ultralight 2 or Small Starlight, because the hump is in the middle on these mice. I'm bringing this up not to advertise my mouse or put down the Finer Mouse shape in any way. Just so we're clear, this is just an easy way of explaining which shape suits what grip. And again, you have to find what's right for you. So if you have a mouse in front of you right now, grip it where you normally would, and check to see which part makes contact with the hump, either in front of your knuckles or the first joint. If you want the hump under your fingers, then the Finer Mouse design is really good. If you want the hump closer to your knuckles, the MZ1 might be better. But as said, I can use the Finer Mouse design as well, even with my grip. So it's pretty versatile. I'd call it a safe shape. Okay, that's the main point I wanted to make. For the rest, it's using pretty standard design principles. Good comfort curves in the buttons. They're there but won't force your fingers into them. Gradual slopes both ways from the middle. The sides have good curvature, with a vertical arc pushing out at the top, which means you have something of a ledge to assist with your grip, good for picking it up, and it slightly flares out at the base, which can help with downward force a bit. Can be good for putting it back on the pad, not a huge factor though. And from the back, it's a mostly flat top, which I find is better for comfort than the rounder ones. And it's symmetrical, which is kind of good for claw grip, but also not as comfortable as something like the EC2. So yeah, Finalmouse kept the same shape, but the mechanical design and structure was engineered from the ground up for the ULX. Not going to go into detail here, all you need to know is it's quite reinforced, feels pretty solid, even with the bigger holes in it. Still looks really cool, and works well. As said, the dimensions are the same, so I'm not going to go into that. The small is going to be the same as the small Starlight, and the large will be slightly smaller than the A58, but basically the same I'm told. So if you use the 60% rule, so just get 60% of your hand measurements, and your claw and fingertip, meaning if you have 20 by 10 cm hands, you should probably be going for a mouse that is 12 cm long and 6 cm wide. Palm grip obviously needs bigger, but I'll try to give you general recommendations for all three sizes now based on the previous mice. So this can serve as the main review for my website. If your hands are under 18.5 cm, I'd go for the small. 18.5 to 20, I'd go for the medium, and above 20, go for the large. However, I do recommend going as small as possible, so even if you have hands that are maybe 21 or 22 centimeters, you may want to give the medium a try. Check the website for the other weights, or I'll leave them in the description when they're out. Here are the three sizes with some other mice so you have an idea of them. Medium is more like the Viper and G Pro Wireless, and the small is more like the MZ1. There aren't many mice this small on the market. The cable is now really thick, so you won't be using these mice plugged in. That said, you can easily monitor battery life with the puck. This is a great feature to have. No more looking in the software or checking with buttons, you can just see it while you're playing. And to reduce weight further, they removed the top button. To change DPI now, you go online, so you still don't need to install software, just go to the website, xpanel.finalmouse.com. You have the overview, these are my settings, and you can choose these DPI levels, but unfortunately you can't set your own. The settings are made to be as simple as possible, but I agree it would be nice to have that feature. For polling rate, I'll get into this in another video, but I personally stick with 1000 Hz, but you could use it at 4000 if you wanted. Lift-off distance you can choose between 1 or 2 mm, and motion sync, might do that in another video, but feel free to give it a try with it off or on, see if you can spot a difference. I don't have the X-Lite latency thing, but just doing the usual latency check with the bump test against the DeathAdder V3. This test isn't great, but it seems Finalmouse is faster by 2 milliseconds or so. Top tier for sure, but that said, it might just be the buttons, and how hard it is to click them. The point here is, it doesn't matter. Wireless latency these days with these top companies is extremely good, not worth worrying about. And same goes for the sensor. Each will tell you they've got minor improvements, but do they actually matter to us in game? No. Sensors have been pretty much perfect for years now. So let's get back to the buttons. Here's a listen to the clicks. Left and right are really nice. The Starlight Magnesium mice were harder to click, but these are much lighter. Should be great for games that require a lot of clicking like MOBAs. Middle mouse has low travel, not the nicest of clicks, but the wheel is wide so it's easy to get to. Now the wheel is probably the only thing I have a problem with on this mouse. Everything else is pretty great. Even the side buttons have a nice click and low travel. But this wheel, it's clunky. And I had a fair few limbo jumps with the blue copy. The gold copy wasn't as bad, but I still did have a few limbo jumps. While the tension is pretty high, which is usually what's needed to avoid limbo jumps, this one gets stuck in between steps fairly often. Like it's easy for me to do this on purpose, where I just put it between the steps, as in it's now in limbo, where it's not on the step in front or before, but as soon as I move the mouse quickly or pick it up and put it back down, it's going to click over, and most likely cause me to jump in game. This is not a problem in Quake, so the mice are fine for games that don't have a broken engine like Apex and Counter-Strike. If you're using the wheel to jump, or other important commands, yeah, be aware of this. It may just be a QC issue, as only one wheel was quite bad, but something to keep in mind anyway. This problem can get you killed in key moments. The advantage of this wheel is that it's dust resistant, so it has some good points. Doesn't feel or sound too bad, but yeah, I prefer other wheels, and the limbo jump issue is a concern. Despite its weight, the build seems good, some slight creaks and cracks but nothing major, and the material feels like a really high quality plastic, actually not too different to the Starlights in the hand. There's some grip to it. Plus the holes, I think most people should be able to grip it just fine. The weight is well balanced to the center where the sensor is, but with this design, the side buttons and curves need you to place your thumb a bit further forward, so it's slightly imbalanced with the grip. But in 3-finger grip and this weight, it's not a big deal, just something they could improve upon in the future. And I'd say just by moving the battery a bit forward, they'll be able to fix this. So to conclude, the biggest takeaway from using this mouse is the lower the weight, the better, even down at this level. I think if we could go lighter, that would still be better. There's no such thing as too light when it comes to mice. For me anyway, unless you're on a hard pad, but we'll get to that in another video, stay tuned for that one. However, once you pass a certain point, there are diminishing returns. It seemed I was a bit more accurate with the Ultralight X compared with the Starlight, so that's great, but considering the percentage of weight dropped, I didn't notice that big a change in my playing ability. If I was to choose between the two, obviously I'd choose the Ultralight X. I mean, why not? If you can get the lighter weight, then do it. But again and again, you have to find the right mouse for you. So try to find the right shape, weight, and overall balance of features that are going to suit you. If this kind of mouse suits you, and you really want the best of the best at the time of this review, then the Ultralight X is the new #1 and comes highly recommended. Amazing mice. We can sum them up by saying they're extremely lightweight, solid build, great shape, top tier features, really low latency, and some extras to improve general use like the website for the software side of things. Everything is pretty much top tier, except the scroll wheel could have excessive limbo jumps, so be aware of that, especially if you're playing Apex. As a mouse to help you aim best, it's amazing. Great to see Finalmouse back, and this is their first mouse that's going to be in continuous production. No more drops. So everyone should be able to buy them once they fulfill demand. Until then, might have to be patient, or try to get in on the pre-orders. And thanks to Finalmouse for sending these out early for a review, so I could actually give some thoughts on them. No bias of course, my mouse design is from Xtrfy, so it would make more sense for me to tell you to go buy that, especially because I actually use that one. But really, I figure the purpose of these videos is to help you find what's right for you. I don't actually care what you buy, but I do hope you make a good choice, and you find something that you're happy with. So I hope all that has helped. Usual links below if you want to help support what I do, sub, like and share, and I'll catch you in the next.